Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So it's the end of the week, so it's time for another market update. And I have been changing the data I am presenting in these market updates to be more in line with what people in this industry are interested in seeing. So today we're going to go through the general overview, diesel prices, ELP violations, authority/capacity, and then we're going to take an even deeper dive into the spot market to see exactly how the market is behaving. For the three main equipment types, flatbeds, reefers, and dry vans, we're going to look at the rate per mile map. We're going to look at how the rate changes from certain areas to certain areas, and we'll take a really deep dive. Ready? Let's go. As always, all the charts are going to be attached here, and on Friday, they're going to be all available on my website. So first, we're going to look at a general overview, which is quite a bit different from what I usually show. First of all, load postings. What's going on the spot market? Week over week, we saw spot loads decrease by 14%. It's not a shocker considering the recent holiday. Month over month, load postings are down, but if we're comparing to this time last year, they're actually up 20%. Now, in terms of capacity, and the way we're measuring it today is by truck postings. So week over week, down 11.4%, month over month, down almost 2%, and year over year, truck postings are down over 30%. Now, in terms of diesel prices, unfortunately, week over week, we saw a 0.27% increase in national diesel prices. Month over month, they are down by 0.43%, but year over year, up 1.62%. All right, let's take a look at the net changes in authorities. So as of last week, we lost a total of 253 carriers net, which means that less people came in than left the industry. Now, if you want to see a breakdown, here it is. Basically, we lost more carriers than the week before, and we gained less carriers than the week before. Therefore, net change is 253 carriers down. Now, what is going on with ELP and out of service? So we have this monthly chart. August is complete right now. And what you can see is even though ELP violations decreased significantly in August, the actual out of service orders were in line pretty much with what July was. And September, you can see up to September 7th, the small bar chart to the right. Now let's dive a little bit deeper to see what is happening. So we can see this is for no border zone carriers, right? Again, they are exempt from getting an out of service order. We can see that ELP out of service orders in pink are more or less, not quite there yet, but more or less in line with ELP violations. And if we want to take a look at the percentage correlation, you will see that the percentage keeps going up, which means that as time goes on, we're seeing that more and more ELP violations are resulting in those out of service orders. Currently, they are at almost 90%. Now, let's take a look at the out of service map, and we're going to see a few things here. Number one, you can see there is no longer any states that did not issue a single out of service order, specifically New Mexico. New Mexico is now at 14. Now, to break this down further, let's take a look at this chart, which shows us the top 10 states that issue out of service orders. They change pretty much. The only thing that doesn't change is that Texas issues the most. So we have Texas, Wyoming, Arizona, Arkansas, Colorado, Iowa, Missouri, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and New York. Now, what is even more interesting is the percent change since last week. So number one, New Mexico, there is no bar chart because they started at 0. Now they're at 14. Florida went up 438% in out of service orders. And if you actually hover over this, you can see it went from 13 to 70 out of service orders in a week. Iowa went up 358%. Connecticut went up 200%. Pennsylvania, North Dakota, Massachusetts, Wisconsin, South Carolina, California, and Alabama. Now, California, it's not so crazy. It actually just went from 3 to 4, but because of the percentage and how it's calculated, yeah, it's up 33.33%. All right, now let's talk about diesel prices. So as I said already, week over week, we saw an increase. Year over year, we saw an increase, but month over month, we saw a decrease. Currently, diesel prices on a national average are at $3.70.5. That's 0.01 cents higher than last week. Not crazy, thank God, but still higher. It's down 1.5 cents since last month, but up almost 6 cents year over year. Now, if you want to take a look at the map regarding diesel prices, it doesn't really change. You're welcome to play around with it on the website on Friday. Texas is still the lowest. The highest is still California, $5.16 per gallon. Now, we also have the raw diesel map showing less IFTA tax, and in that case, it's Oregon. That is the most expensive at $4.50 per gallon, and that's because Oregon has no IFTA tax. It's at 0. All right, let's take a look at spot market changes and overview. You will see that there's some data that is missing, and that's because FTR didn't fully update all of this. The thing that we have to pay attention to is the rate changes week over week. Dry vans lost about 3 cents per mile. Reefers lost 8 cents per mile. Flatbeds continue to stay flat. Now, year over year, dry vans saw 0 change. Reefers are up 1.4% and flatbeds are up 5.5%. And then volume changes week over week. It's approximate. All 3 equipment types saw a decrease in spot volumes. The biggest decrease was for reefers, which is down about 23% week over week. All right, now let's take a look at what is happening with rates just in comparison to this whole year. As you can see, yeah, flatbeds are not doing very well. Dry vans are the lowest average rate per mile. Reefers are kind of all over the place, going up, down, up, down. And yeah, if we compare the 3, we can see reefers are paying the highest on average, followed by flatbeds, and then dry vans. All right, now a new chart right here, which breaks down the 3 main equipment types by categories. So let's start with dry vans. The highest average rate per mile comes out of Delaware for dry vans. The lowest rate per mile is from Florida. Highest volume for dry vans is Texas. Lowest volume is Rhode Island. And the most versatile state, meaning that there are a lot of loads that go to different regions for dry vans, is Texas. For reefers, the highest rate per mile comes from Massachusetts, and it's usually those short loads. The lowest rate per mile is Colorado. Highest volume is, of course, Texas. Lowest volume is Montana for reefers. And the most versatile place for reefers where you have choice, right? A lot of loads and you have a choice of where to go is California. Finally, for flatbeds, the highest rate per mile currently is West Virginia. The lowest is Colorado. Highest volume is Alabama this week. Lowest volume is Delaware. And the most versatile state for flatbeds is Texas. All right, let's take a look of what is going on specifically for the different equipment types. So this is the loads and trucks map. So as I already said, Texas has the most loads, followed by California. So this is the load map for reefers. The darker it is, the more volume comes out of that state. Now, in terms of trucks, this shows us where trucks are usually going. Most of them are going either to Florida or to Texas. I believe most are going to Texas. Most are going to Texas. Now, the interesting part, of course, is the rate per mile map for reefers. And what you can do here, first of all, the darkest areas are the highest average rate per mile. So for example, if we click on Massachusetts, you can see the average rate per mile is $4.79, but it only is based off loads going to the northeast because everything else, the rate was not posted or there are no loads going to the different regions. If you click through the states like Texas, for example, you will see that there are loads going to pretty much everywhere except for the West Coast the last time I checked, but the average rate per mile is $2.53. So you're welcome to play around with this map again to familiarize yourself with the place you are going to. Now, I created another chart for each of the three equipment types, and this is showing us the outbound rate per mile and where the highest and lowest paying loads go. So for reefers, the highest outbound rate per mile for reefers on average is going from the Northeast, $3.21. The lowest comes from the southern states, $2.19 on average. Next, you will see the different load volumes of that region, and you will see also highest and lowest destination states. So for example, from the Northeast, which pays on average $3.21, the highest rate per mile is going to the Northeast, $4.73. The lowest rate per mile goes to the Western states, $1.28. And something you will notice is that pretty much for all regions, the lowest rate per mile for reefers goes to the West Coast. Interesting, huh? And that's because also we already saw that the most versatile state for reefers is California and the West Coast in general. So let's take a look now at dry vans, starting with the loads and trucks. Most of the loads come out of Texas, followed by California. Now, if we take a look at trucks, most trucks go to Texas, followed by Florida. Now, if we look at the rate per mile map, you will see there are some missing states here like New Mexico, Montana, West Virginia, and the reason for this is because there were no rates posted, so there is nothing to average out. You will see that Delaware right now is the highest average rate per mile, $3.81, and there were actually several loads going to the southern states as well as, of course, the Northeast. Now, we already know that the most versatile is Texas. The average rate per mile is $1.93 from Texas for dry vans. Now, again, let's take a look at this chart, and we will see that the highest rate per mile on average for dry van comes out of the Midwest. And from the Midwest to the Northeast, it pays around $2.72. Now, if you want to go west, it's $1.47. And that's a big problem, right? Those long loads don't pay. The lowest rate per mile comes out from the West Coast, funny enough. However, if you're staying West Coast to West Coast, you are getting on average $2.20 if you're a dry van operator. If you want to go to the Midwest, you get $1.63. Finally, last but not least, let's take a look at flatbeds. Most loads come out of Alabama, as we have already determined, followed by actually Georgia and then Texas, which is very, very interesting. Now, trucks usually go to Texas. As you can see, it's a very bright spot on the map. Texas is where most loads go. Therefore, most trucks end up in that area. Now, in terms of the rate per mile map, yeah, I mean, it looks really good compared to dry vans and reefers, but not so fast. You have to look through it. So for example, let's talk about Kansas. Kansas looks amazing, $3.05 on average, but this is only based on loads going to the Midwest. There was nothing else posted there. And always compared to the load volume, right? Load volume matters because you might be in a place like, I don't know, Connecticut, for example, that has a very high rate per mile, but all loads go to Massachusetts, which is very, very short. So your gross is just not there. All right, so I'm going to let you guys play around with that map. Let's take a look at the chart. So for flatbeds, the highest rate per mile comes from the Northeast, funny enough. But the load volume is not there. That's the lowest load volume, as you can see. And of course, it's Northeast to Northeast that skews this. Going from the Northeast to the Northeast is around $3.60 per mile, almost. But if you're trying to get even to the Plain States, it's $1.43. And if we take a look at the Plain States, that is the lowest paying region, $2.09. The highest rate per mile you can get from there is going to the Plain States, $2.22. The lowest is to the Western states. So yeah, play around with it. You will see that the Southern states have the most load volume. They're not the highest paying, however, but you can see that the lowest rate per mile to the Western states is still above $2 per mile. So yeah, that's the market update for this week. I'm going to continue fine-tuning the data that I present to be more in line with what you guys are interested in and what helps you guys. I know I got a lot of emails. I didn't get a chance to get back to everyone yet, but I got a lot of emails about how helpful the rate per mile map was. So I will continue expanding on that. Anyway, guys, wishing you all a fantastic rest of your week. Strength, patience, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep learning. See you in the next video.